Chapter 7 of The Wheel of Fortune by a Self-Made Man. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 7. An Unpleasant Surprise. Bert's first job was to turn the handle of one of the culling machines in a shady nook of the orchard. This apparatus was simplicity itself, a framework built on a slight incline, with a shallow box at the upper end to receive the almost ripe fruit as it came from baskets on a wagon from the picking gangs. Then 2 sets of long, narrow rollers, each set of a different width between the rollers, which were kept in motion by the turning of a handle. Then a shallow receptacle at the base, into which the larger and finer variety of peaches finally found a resting place before being run out into boxes for shipment. Thus 3 grades of the fruit were quickly assorted. Sometimes Bert was called on to nail the wooden crates into which the fruit was sent to the market. 2 shipments were made daily, and Bert drove one of the wagons to the steamboat landing on the creek and helped pile the boxes up on the wharf. Most of the people employed on the farm at this season were young fellows about Bert's age, and although they had long hours of labor, working practically from daylight to dark, they managed to extract a good deal of fun out of the situation. One of them had brought a banjo over from Baltimore, and after supper they inaugurated a species of hijinks for their own entertainment. Bert found he had a good voice for singing, and it was not long before he could render some of the popular songs in fine style. His genial disposition made him immensely popular with his comrades, and also with the proprietor of the farm and his family, which embraced 3 fine-looking girls and a stalwart son. Bert's second Sunday at the peach farm was marked by a special honor. He was asked Saturday morning by one of the Bates sisters, Miss Bell, if he would like to drive them to church the next morning, a distance of some 3 miles. "I should be very happy to do so, Miss Bell, but I haven't any decent clothes. I am sorry to say my working outfit represents the extent of my wardrobe," and he felt that his candid admission was rather mortifying. The girl, who was a charming brunette of 17, laughed. "I'll ask Pa to let you go to Chestertown, that's 10 miles away on the Chester River, this afternoon to provide yourself with a new suit, if you like." "I would be glad to do so if he would allow me." "He'll let you go if I ask him. Pa never refuses me anything." "That's very kind of you, Miss Bell." "Don't be so sure of that," she replied mischievously. "Why not?" asked Bert in some surprise. "It's simply pure selfishness," said the girl demurely. "We girls have set our hearts on having you take us to church tomorrow, and we don't mean to let you have any excuse to back out of it." "I'm afraid the rest of the boys will be jealous over the honor you are about to accord me, and maybe they won't do a thing to me when they get the chance." "You aren't afraid of them, are you, Mr. Bert?" said Belle Bates roguishly. "Mr. Bert? Oh, come now, my name is just plain Bert. I don't want any Mr. to it." "Well, Bert, then," said the girl with a slight hesitation and just the suspicion of a blush. "That's better. Now I'll answer your question. No, I'm not afraid of them, especially when it's a matter of escorting 3 such pretty girls as yourself and sisters." "Aren't you complimentary?" laughed Miss Bell. "Jeannie and Lizzie will just go into a spasm over that when I tell them." "Then I hope you won't tell them." "I wouldn't miss doing it for anything," laughed the girl as she skipped away. About 3 o'clock Mr. Bates called Bert aside. "I understand you would like to fit yourself out with another suit of clothes. Here is an order on one of the Chestertown stores. Go over to the house. You'll find my son about ready to start for town." Bert thanked him, took the order, and in 15 minutes was on his way to the county seat with George Bates. Chestertown was in existence during the Revolutionary War, and the town claims to have had the honor of a visit from George Washington. At any rate, George Bates pointed out a well to Bert, at which it was generally believed that the father of his country stopped to quench his thirst on a certain occasion, the exact date of which seems to be involved in obscurity. The 2 boys returned by the old road which led through the old village of Fairleigh, where they stopped to get the mail. Bert looked uncommonly spruce the next morning in his suit of navy blue and a 4-in-hand tie with a rhinestone ornament, when he stepped into the double-seated buggy with the 3 Bates girls, who were decked out in all their finery. Belle managed to take her seat beside him, and we are bound to say that his companions watched him drive off with his load of youth and beauty with feelings of envy. When the little red brick Methodist church was reached, their arrival caused a flutter of mild excitement among the female acquaintances of the Mrs. Bates. After services, Belle and her sisters were surrounded by a bevy of friends, all curious to find out who this handsome young fellow was that they had with them. Belle introduced Bert to several of their particular friends, and he made a decidedly favorable impression upon the fair ones. When he had returned to the farm, he, with the 3 college boys, were invited to take dinner with the family, and the 4 of them enjoyed the occasion immensely. The ensuing month passed all too quickly for Bert Hawley. Although he had worked hard and faithfully, he had never enjoyed himself so much in his life. Besides, the money he was earning was all his own, a nest egg, as it were, on which he expected to build his future fortune. He had written to Helen Potts and had received an answer from her. Belle Bates had noticed the handwriting on his letter, and had teased him until he consented to tell her about his fair correspondent. "I suppose you think lots of her, don't you?" asked Miss Belle with a twinge of jealousy, for she was not indifferent to her father's young hired hand. "Yes," admitted Bert, "I do. I have known her many years, and she was always very kind to me, especially at the time of my mother's death," and the boy's eyes became moistened at the recollection of his recent loss. "Is she very pretty?" "I think she is." Belle did not look extra well pleased to hear that. "I suppose—" Then she stopped suddenly and looked out of the window. "What was you going to say?" asked Bert. "Nothing," answered the girl, getting up and walking away without another word. "I wonder what's the matter with Belle today?" asked Jeanie of Lizzie that evening when the 2 girls had gone upstairs to bed. "I'm sure I don't know," returned Lizzie, "but I do know she's been as cross as she well could be. I noticed she didn't speak a word to Bert Hawley this evening when he and the Titcomb boys were with us on the veranda. That's something unusual. Do you think they had a spat?" "I'm sure I can't tell. Belle hasn't spoken 3 words to me since dinner." "Nor me either." Then they got to talking about something else. The peach season ended the following week, and all the extra hands, with the single exception of Bert, were paid off and dismissed. Mr. Bates, who had taken a great liking to Bert, had persuaded him to stay a while longer to help him in the field in place of a hand taken down with a very bad attack of chills and fever, a malady prevalent in that neighborhood during the summer. Bert now ate all together with the family, although he slept with the 2 field hands in the quarters used for the hired help. The afternoon of the 15th of September closed in dull and gloomy. It was close on to supper time, and the boy was making a short cut from one of the fields on the edge of the now denuded peach orchard. This took him along the bay shore. Looking out over the choppy water of the Chesapeake, he saw a small, dirty-looking sloop lying at anchor within 100 feet of the bluff on which the Bates house stood. She looked like one of the oyster boats he had noticed lying in the basin the day he arrived in Baltimore. The season had already commenced, so he judged that this must be a craft engaged in the business. "It isn't an occupation I care to follow," mused Bert as he walked along, with the rake he carried swinging over his shoulder. He leaped across the shallow stream which formed the connecting link between the bay and the lake in the heart of the farm, and approached the lane which led up from the shore to the house. It was here the bluff began, which ran for a mile or so down the shore, and the place was thickly covered with short trees and shrubbery. His hand was on the little gate when he heard a noise in the bushes. Turning his head, he saw, not 2 yards away, the villainous face of Rake, thrust quite through the shrubbery, and regarding him with an expression decidedly menacing. End of chapter 7.